Well, hey, this is Bobby Reynolds with Benchmark Home Loans, coming at you with the tip of the week where we are busting credit score myths. Last week we talked about two myths. The first one says that there's only one score, and that's not the case because there are three different major credit bureaus, each with a different way of figuring your score. Myth number two said that credit scores were forever, and they are not. They fluctuate and they can be affected over time. Myth number three says if I were a rich man or if I were a rich woman, then that would equate to a higher credit score. And that's not necessarily the case either. The fact is that it doesn't so much matter how much you have, but how you use what you have that makes the biggest difference. In fact, as they were doing their study in this article over the summer, they looked at people at various income ranges, and of the people with $10,000 or less income per year, over 35% of them still managed to have a score that was above a 720. Likewise, when they looked at people that made over $150,000 a year, 5% of them still had a score that was below a 620. So it's not always the amount of income that makes the biggest difference in the credit score. Another interesting trend that they found was that people who were middle-aged tended to have the higher scores because, if you think about it, they were using credit. They had a mortgage, they had a car payment, they were monitoring their credit situation. It was really important to them. Whereas people maybe who were just starting out, they didn't have as many trade lines, they didn't have the credit history, they may be saddled with some student debt. That would affect their score. And also people at the other end of the life chain, they're paying off their debt. They don't have a mortgage anymore. They don't have the car payments anymore. And so the lack of recent credit history would tend to make their scores taper off just a bit. So it's not always income or having a lot of assets that equates to a higher credit score. Myth number four says that good intentions are good enough. In other words, if I just plan enough, if I'm just detailed enough in developing my financial situation, then that will equate to a higher score. And while it is true that planning is important and people who make sure that their expenses fit nicely within their income, that make sure they have an emergency fund and have enough margin to handle unexpected things, that tends to work out best. But sometimes there are storms that come that just make it really, really stressful or really, really difficult to keep those scores up there. It could start out gradually, a broken heater one week, a flat tire the next, and kind of snowball, or it could be sudden, whether it's a medical emergency or even a job loss. In fact, the annual job turnover rate right now is at 43%, which says in 2013, 4 out of 10 people separated from their employer for one reason or another. Now, when you have that kind of significant financial stress, it definitely can make a difference in credit scores. Obviously, those who have the resources to manage that oftentimes fare better. But one of the things they found is that when they studied people in the higher income range, they had fewer delinquencies while they were employed, but if they lost their employment, the number of delinquencies, that percentage increase in delinquencies, was the greatest. In fact, it was more than those who had lower income ranges. They had more delinquencies while they were employed, but when their income or when their job situation changed, the percentage of delinquencies wasn't as high, which tells us that financial stress is a significant contributor in bad credit score outcomes. If you took that, though, and put it not only on an individual level, but you look at it on more of a national level, it has an effect as well. What they did is they plotted the different employment rates state by state. And the states, of course, that had the higher unemployment rates also had the lower average credit scores. So even though we can make plans, and we should make plans, sometimes there are things going on beyond us that can affect our overall ability to maintain a high credit score as well. So what the outcome of the article is that the old advice tends to be some of the best. Spend less than you make. Keep an eye on your credit score. Make sure you're budgeting. Make sure you have, a savings account. Those sorts of things. And while it can't guarantee that you'll weather every storm. It can say that you may have a bigger umbrella for helping your chances of keeping those scores up there. Well, I hope that this has been helpful. If you have any questions about credit score myths, credit scores in general, and how they affect lending, please reach out to us here at Benchmark. We would love to talk with you and help get information to you as best we can. Y'all have a great weekend. Bye-bye.